Okay, so final team, another promoted team. We've talked about promoted teams having a lot of ambition, and probably none more so than Wolves. They dominated the championship last season, and they have a huge incoming list as well. Rui Patricio, Joao Moutinho, Willy Bolly, Diego Jota, Leo Bonatoni, Raul Jimenez, Adama Traore. It's been a busy window at Wolves. And as such, there's a lot of expectation now. They have obviously these things with Jorge Mendes, the super agent, and it's really pushed them up to this next level, it looks like. Is this are they going to match this expectation, or is there sort of caution to this amount of spending and this amount of just throwing out all these options at Wolves? Can you see them living up to the hype?
I think they'll live up to the hype to an extent, but then I've seen like some pundits say, they could make the top 6 or they could challenge for the top 8, which I think is just ridiculous. They're a championship team just coming up at the end of the day. Yeah. It's a much higher intensity. The teams are much better, and they've got all these players that most of them haven't played Premier League football before, so they'll all need to adapt, and they've pretty much signed a new team, so I think they won't go down and they'll be fine, but they'll face some tasks on the way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think some of the signings they've made are brilliant. Rui Patricio, I genuinely think, is a world-class goalkeeper. And Joao Moutinho is a very good midfielder at the same time. But I think they might struggle for a goal scorer. Jimenez, Bonatini, I don't think they're going to be a guarantee of goals for Wolves in the Premier League. That might be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite surprised as well that they let the likes of Barry Douglas go. I thought that was a bit of a strange departure, considering
he was excellent last season.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that they've really signed a like-for-like replacement. You could argue, is it Vinagre?
Yeah,
is that how you say
it? I think so. Ruben, Vinagre. It's one of the pronunciations.
He's come in. He can play. I won't say he's a natural left back, but he can play there. Johnny Castro from Atletico Madrid maybe is his replacement. But I think there's been good business overall. I won't get too carried away with it. I think a good season for them would be staying in the division, maybe, table finish. I think if they are to become, long term, if they are to become a threat to the top half of the Premier League, I don't think they'll do it in one season. I think it would take time to transition. But I think this season for Wolves should just be about consolidating and just, integrating those players with each other and just getting everyone settled and gelled.
Do you think they could be in for a bit of a nasty wake-up call in the Premier League, not being the big dogs anymore? Obviously, they've tried to be competitive with these players and the profile of player they've got, but do you think they could come in for a shock, and how do you think they'll respond to that if and when it happens?
I'm not sure they'll be for that much of a shock. I mentioned earlier about how the bottom 10 and the top 6 of the Championship, that divide's slowly getting there. Yeah. And earlier when we were speaking about Newcastle, I said to Aaron that they won't get down just on the basis there's a lot worse teams than them. So I think, barring a disastrous season, I think Wolves will be fine. I think there's a lot worse teams than them that will go down. I think it's just, like I said, I think for them it's just about staying up and then maybe just, trying to integrate some of those philosophies that were so successful last year, just trying to integrate them into the Premier League. And then that's when they can start building once they've been established for a few years. I think that's when they'll start.
Yeah, it's their first Premier League season since 2004, I believe. And it's certainly looking very exciting. How far do you think this Wolves project could go, obviously with the Mendes link, in the next, let's say the next 4 or 5 years? Where do you see Wolves going on with this project?
think maybe I won't get carried away and say top 6, but I think that sort of subdivision between 6th to 10th, I think that's the sort of area they could challenge to. I think if you compare their squad to Everton's got a much better squad than them. I think if you compare them to some of the other Premier League teams, there's a lot more experience, and as well the mentality of staying in the Premier League for a few years. I think that's what they're lacking, and at the moment the deals seem a little bit, a bit dodgy. The fact that many players are allowed to come in, like, sooner or later, this Portuguese link it can only go so far. I mean, there's homegrown quotas they'll have to fill and stuff like that. Financial fair play they'll have to get around to. I think there's definitely potential there, but I wouldn't get carried away.
I think this season is very important. Sorry, mate. This season is very important. That if it goes well and they get like a mid-table finish, they might convince like other players who are looking on at this project, seeing what's going on. I might convince them to get on board and take them to the next level.
I'd say that the next 2 years are probably quite crucial, because I think all the young good players will have 2 years of Premier League experience if they stay up. Then a lot of big teams will probably be looking at them. So if they all leave all of a sudden, then you're looking at quite a big exodus. I think they need to stay up this year, and then next season they probably need to kick on quite quickly to try and keep all the good players.
I think as well, Ruben Neves is so key to that to that team. Everything runs through him. He's such a good player. For the fact that they were able to get him in the Championship, it really is such a statement. I mean, there's a lot of Premier League teams that would sought after him. I think maybe he'd be a very good squad player for some of the top 6. He's still young, he's still improving, and I think if Wolves stay in the division for the next 2 or 3 years, and he replicates his form in the Championship and translates that to the Premier League, I think they'll face a really tough battle keeping hold of him.
One final note then, before we call it a day. If we just go around who we think has had the best transfer window out of all the clubs. Who's the winner of the transfer window?
I think it's probably hard to look past Liverpool. I mean, there's not been a lot of... In comparison to recent transfer windows, there's not been too much transfer business out of the top 6. Man City, they've just done the one deal, and we mentioned earlier maybe there could be some potential problems there, but Liverpool identified the weaknesses, the flaws in their system, and they've gone big to replace them. And if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd be really excited. I think they've probably had the best window.
I'd agree with that.
I'd probably say Fulham for me. Just the way they seem to pretty much have changed their Championship squad into a Premier League squad almost straight away. And if they all gel immediately, then they could have a really good season.